Imagine you wake up to disturbing noises and strange lights. Something calls out to you, but it's in your head. A psychic connection. Sensing your obsession with comic books, a strange life form grants the most precious gift of all, time travel. But there are rules. First, you must swear allegiance to the alien race. Second, your time travel is limited to a single calendar year. Select wisely. Third, pick 3 different comic books from that year. You have 10 seconds to make these decisions. Yes, in 1976, Eternals 1, Nova 1, and Hulk 181. Ugh, terrible choices. The best book you selected, Hulk 181, isn't even from that year. Further, why would you pick any year from 1965 or later? Enough of these books exist in ultra high grade today to make time travel unnecessary. The alien concludes that Earth is devoid of intelligent life and begins harvesting all of its resources, including human beings. Y'all know how that goes. Don't be that person. In the remote chance this happens to you, don't blow this opportunity. Here's step-by-step advice so you can make a good decision. Should you swear allegiance to the alien race? Of course, they would kill you otherwise. What year and which books to pick? That's much tougher. I provided several options for your consideration. Many of you may automatically think 1938. That's the year that Superman debuted in Action Comics #1. It's a good year for sure, but only comes in 6th place. The crown jewel, of course, is Action Comics #1, which is the most valuable comic book in all the world. Third is Action Comics #2, the second appearance of Superman, but that's not Superman on the cover. Right in the middle is Action Comics #7, which is the second cover appearance of Supes. From a monetary perspective, 1938 would rank higher, but I knocked it down a few pegs because it only hits one note, and that's Superman. For the next year, I want to give a few clues. The top grossing movie was Cleopatra, the top song was Sugar Shack, and this unfortunately was the year that JFK was assassinated. We're talking about 1963. The books we're taking back home with us include Tales of Suspense 39, First Iron Man, Amazing Spider-Man #1, and to top the list off is X-Men #1. Talking about running deep, 22% of the books that Overstreet lists as the top 50 Silver Age books come from this year. The biggest song was Chattanooga Choo Choo, the top grossing movie was Sergeant York, and the most noteworthy political events were Pearl Harbor and America entering World War II. We're of course talking about 1941. Above the line include Mega Grails, All-Star Comics #8, the first Wonder Woman, the rarest Mega Grail, Pep Comics #22, which is the first Archie, and given the World War II backdrop, it's appropriate that Cap 1 leads the charge. The #1 song is Stranger on the Shore. The #1 movie is The Longest Day. The notable political event, the Cuban Missile Crisis, begins. If you were limited to just one year in the Silver Age, 1962 would be it. Slightly deeper overall compared to 1963, it's also superior at top. Starting off with Journey into Mystery #83, the first appearance of Thor. In the top 2, they happen to be the top 2 Silver Age books. At #2, we have Hulk #1. He, of course, is sporting his amazing gray skin. #1 could be no other than Amazing Fantasy #15, the first appearance of Spider-Man and the most valuable Silver Age book, bar none. Let's revisit how damn good this year is. Outside of 1962, you could pick any 3 comic books from the Silver Age, and they couldn't match up to 1962's best. Let's see what the matchup would likely be. Competing against Amazing Fantasy 15 in the #1 slot would be Fantastic Four #1, an absolute great book, but still doesn't hold a candle to AF 15. #2 would be a pretty tough fight because you would have Showcase Comics #4, the first Silver Age Flash, versus Hulk 1. Hulk 1 is still going to edge out Showcase 4. Where 1962 gets in a bit of trouble is in the 3rd spot. It's likely that X-Men #1 would go ahead of Journey into Mystery #83, but here you go, 2-1, 1962 versus all the other Silver Age books. 1962 wins. Further, I put together a graph of the overall strength of Silver Age years based on presence in the Overstreet Top 50. As you can see, 1962 and 1963 represent almost half of all the books, despite being only 2 years out of 15. Wait a minute, we're being interrupted by the aliens. What do they have to say? Which year is runner-up? A few hints for you. The top song was I'll Never Smile Again. The top grossing movie was Pinocchio, and the major political event included Winston Churchill becoming British Prime Minister. 1940 is the single deepest year in comic books. It's also quite strong at top. Wiz Comics 2-1, the first appearance of Captain Marvel. Most folks don't know that Captain Marvel was the #1 bestseller in the 40s, eclipsing all other superheroes. All American Comics 16, the rare and important first appearance of Green Lantern. The headliner is none other than Batman Comics #1, first issue of the series dedicated to Batman, and the first appearance of arguably comics' greatest supervillain, the Joker. For extra spice, it also features the first appearance of Catwoman. Here's a mind-boggling stat for you. Mind you, the Golden Age ranges from 1938 to 1955, and 1 year claims a third of the top 100 books. As spectacular as 1940 is, it comes in at a distant second place to this year. WWII officially began. In the Mood was the #1 song, and the #1 movie was The Wizard of Oz. I have to mention a couple other movies here. Mr. Smith Goes to Hollywood and Gone with the Wind came out this year. 1939 is arguably the best year for movies of all time, and it's undeniably the best year for comic books. It's deep, and the top 3 are unrivaled. Marvel Comics #1, the true origin of the Marvel Universe, and ranked 4th overall in the Golden Age. Superman #1, the first series dedicated to a superhero, and the 3rd most valuable comic book of the Golden Age. Finally, at the top of the list is Detective Comics #27, the first appearance of Batman, which is worth only a hair less than Action Comics #1. We've got to take a look at this year at a couple other angles. While not quite as deep as 1940, a quarter of the top 100 Golden Age books fall under 1939. Further, the top 3 are unrivaled. In fact, outside of 1939, you could grab any book from any year and put those 3 against the 1939 year. 1939 is going to win out. Let's take a look. Yeah, it's true, Action 1 would barely edge out Tech 27, but Batman 1 would come up just short of Superman 1. And then you could take any other book, an All-American 16 or an Amazing Fantasy 15, and it's just not going to be able to compete against Marvel Comics #1. Regarding depth, let's take a look at the pie chart. Look how dominant 1939 and 1940 are. Together, these 2 years account for almost 60% of the Golden Age's most valuable comics, despite being only about 10% of the years. Let's zoom out again. If you picked any of the 6 years I mentioned, then the aliens would consider you, and by extension, the human race, to be intelligent life forms. We are a species to be celebrated and partnered with. Congratulations, your knowledge saved and perhaps even helped all of mankind. If you're interested in purchasing grails like the ones I've shown, consider checking out this video. And if you appreciate the in-depth analyses you've seen here, consider subscribing. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you around real soon.